Good evening. My name is John D. Bartola, and with me tonight I have an amazing guest who has come to the station to do an interview on why she believes she should be our next Democratic Congresswoman for the 12th Congressional District. I'd like to introduce you to Erin Mcclelland.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's glad to be here.
Erin, I liked you for this interview because I think we need a woman in the district.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing to have female politicians. What made you decide to run 2 years ago?
A number of things made me decide to run. I have a real passion for policy. I did some training under Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill, learned a lot about the art of writing good policy from him. So that sort of gave me a bug about running, but I've always been very political. I have 4 generations of unions in my family, so we've always been very active with the cause of making sure that the middle class is empowered and growing, because that's where all of our purchasing power comes from. So, and this seat has been traditionally Democratic. It's been Democratic for decades.
You are the legacy of the Murtha machine.
Yeah, so
we have to talk about Murtha.
It's a generation of Democratic politics, and to see, it went from Jack Murtha to Congressman Critz, and then there was that crazy gerrymandering of the Altmaier seat, but these were all Democrats,
yes.
all of them. And to see an extreme far-right Tea Party, Freedom Caucus, very shut it down, repeal it, defund it kind of leadership in this district was so frustrating to me, because that's not how I saw Congress growing up, or a congressional leader. So it was a number of factors, but I just had the bug to run, and it just happened to be this seat, went to somebody that I didn't really approve of, so.
I did invite Congressman Rothfuss to join us today. He declined. I did ask for him to send a representative or a statement, which the invitation was there. Keith, if you ever want to join us, I'd gladly bring you back. In the last election when you ran, you had 42% of the vote.
Yeah.
Do you think you can close the gap by that 8%?
Yeah, if you look at what happened in the 2014 races, we had 11 congressional races running. Manoj Trivedi was on his 3rd run. He raised $1.2 million. He only got 43%. I came in 3rd of the 11 races, and a lot of that, there was a lot of factors. Turnout was abysmal. It was the worst that we'd seen since 1941.
And we're not going to have that issue
this time. No, we're not going to have that issue
You're
this time.
You're going to have all the Trump and all the Hillary.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was bad turnout. There was some issues going on with the state party, so there wasn't a coordinated campaign of any kind. So literally the congressional races were hanging out there, everyone for themselves. So it was a difficult year for any congressional race. So I was actually proud as a first-time candidate that we came in 3rd of all of those races.
So what did you learn from 2 years ago to now? I remember, look at the camera, give you all the good angles.
Yeah,
what do you think you've actually learned? Remember, 2 years ago, you had a good percentage. You were green to politics. You didn't have the system work.
Sure.
Now it's 2 years later. I know you got some really impressive endorsements.
Yeah.
And those, please tell our viewers.
I mean, we were endorsed by the Pittsburgh Building Trades, Beaver County Building Trades, most of organized labor, Allegheny County Labor Council, and we just got Keystone Progress. That was a big one for me, because this is a very moderate
They're very
district.
liberal, and they're very liberal too.
Yeah, they are very liberal, and I'm not, and this is a very moderate district. So the idea that I went for when I went for that endorsement, and I actually told them this in the questionnaire, that I was going for it because I think that there are some values in the progressive platform that translate really, really well to rural voters and small towns, and that's why that was important. But I really told them that my policies, while they don't exactly coincide with their views, I think there's a way that we can work together on a lot of things. So I was proud to get that endorsement, because I definitely didn't sugarcoat the more conservative views that I hold.
I know that one of your catchphrases has been changing Congress. I've been to Erin's lectures before, and I've heard you say that. And I know you did have a competitor initially who backed out of the race. Stephen Larchuk, I met with him twice. He actually given me a copy of his book. He had very interesting views on how to change the nature of Congress. Now that you are the only Democrat and you are facing off in less than a month,
Yeah.
how would you like to change Congress?
I don't want to change Congress. I want to change this seat. I'm under no delusions that I'm going to be the one person in 435 that's going to go and just make Washington work. If that was the case, then Mike Doyle would have done it, or Nancy Pelosi would have done it, or Bob Brady, or any of the Congress people that we've had that have been there for decades. I want to change the way, I want to bring it back to what it was when Jack Murtha was there. And when Billy Coyne was there, and those kind of people that.
So what does that mean to go back to Murtha? 'Cause
I
literally went to Murtha's office a few weeks ago, and he had all the old records in boxes.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at the political machine. He
Oh,
had
yeah.
notes on everybody before they were elected.
Mm-hmm.
He had a file on Santorum. It's a dangerous question mark before he got elected.
Yeah, he was very engaged. He was one of those people that
Wrote everybody.
when he was he
Yes.
was in the streets talking to people in the district. If he met a homeless person, he did what he could to find them a place to stay. If he had somebody in district that was struggling to make payroll, he would help them out. He was, the congressman back then was the aristocrat of the local elected official. And they were this nice bridge between local and federal. And we don't have that now. We have an absentee congressman who literally has run on the assumption of voting no on anything he possibly can in Washington and performing absolutely zero service at the local level. It's literally destruction from within for government. So that's what I want. I want to bring this seat back. I want to be very visible. We have a congressman that refuses to do a single town hall. I think that is the basic job description of a congressional.
Keith used to do something called Coffee with Keith. I actually went to quite a few of them. In the last year, they've disappeared.
Yeah.
The idea behind it, and I did like the premise. He claimed he worked for 700,000 people. He would show up to a restaurant, a bakery, it was like a mini town hall, but then he wouldn't answer your questions. I went several times and literally got a Hail Mary pass, people pushing me aside, so you really couldn't engage your congressman. Mm-hmm. So if it's a PR front, I'm disappointed. I was going to ask Congressman Roth is why he quit doing them and why he doesn't answer questions. Mm-hmm. If you were elected in the next month, how would you change that?
We have committed to 6 town halls, 1 in every county in the first 100 days.
Okay.
So everybody, it'll be at 7 at night, not during the day when working people can't show up. I think that's appalling, that a working person cannot show up and talk to their congressional leader about what's happening. So we'll have them at 7 o'clock at night so working people can show up or send a family member, a friend, or a business representative. Air it out, vent your feelings, say what you want to say. There's a lot of neglect in this district that they've suffered from over the past 4 years with his representation. So we need to get a really good understanding of how people are feeling, what they're looking for from a congressional leader, and that's what I want to do right out of the gate. Second, I want to start countywide drug task force in every single county. Yeah.
Your opponent, Congressman Roth, has sent me this letter back in May. Mm-hmm. I won't read it all to the viewers. It addresses the opiate and heroin epidemic. These are his ideas. What are yours, and how would you combat? What do you agree with him? Do you disagree? What is the problem according to him?
So again, if you look at what he's doing, he is talking about things like naloxone. He's talking about a comprehensive opiate abuse reduction grant program. These are all things that we see people do during an election time. And I've seen it before. I've been in this industry for 20 years working on the drug and alcohol problem, particularly the opiate problem. And I did this with the office.
Do you think it's hopeless?
No. But what I do think is none of this stuff works. He has no idea what he's doing. He's trying to get reelected, and that's all this is. This is a problem which in the Johnstown newspaper, when asked about the opiate problem, he actually said that these people are breaking into people's homes. He classified them as home invaders.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was really offensive, and it
he
showed.
Targeted his blight, and he made it out that they were all criminals.
Yes, it's blight, it's criminals, and the fact is this problem has touched everybody in some way, shape, or form. We all know somebody who's gone through this, a family member, a friend, the child of a family member or friend. This has touched everybody's lives, and we are in an area that has one of the top 25 worst heroin problems in the nation.
And Johnstown, where I'm from, is number one.
Is number one.
And that is your district, and that is
my district.
So are you more into rehabilitation, treatment? Where do you want to focus your energies?
I want to start out with a countywide effort that everybody's coordinated with. So when I designed these programs for the Office of National Drug Control Policy's 25 Cities Initiative, the biggest problem we had is getting everybody on board. The county commissioners, the payers, the providers, the clergy, the schools, everybody has to be on the same page. And that's what the power of a congressional leader can do, but you have to know what you're doing. All the legislation in the world isn't going to help this if we don't have a coordinated effort on the ground. We need complete reform of our drug control policy. None of what he's saying is actually addressing the problem. It's little Band-Aids, and they're very little Band-Aids. And
okay, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
It's a number of problems. First of all, we have way too much, we over-criminalize consumption and under-criminalize distribution. I think that we need to move more toward a legalized process that doesn't criminalize people for dime bags and things like that. That's not helping this problem.
Marijuana going legal in a matter of a few months, that should take one.
Medical marijuana, yeah.
So medical's going to be a big.
Yeah, I think you should just legalize it across the board. I'm completely against it. First of all, if you look at it as an issue of a continuum of drugs, alcohol is far more systemically damaging, far more addictive, and far more destructive. I always say
it destroys more families.
Exactly, than marijuana does. If you look at marijuana, most people aren't, getting into bar fights on marijuana.
No, they're getting drunk and they're stupid.
Exactly, yeah. But with marijuana, people are usually just staying home and eating a lot. So I don't see any reason for it to be illegal.
Criticize that we can't stop the drugs from coming into the district.
Mm-hmm.
So how, if you had the ability to write a law or propose a bill, what would you do to stop
We
it?
need to start funding our drug control policy. I mean, we really need to start addressing this, and I think it's gone completely neglected, not analyzed. If you look at what the ONDCP does, and the ONDCP used to be a big deal, over the years, it's just gotten less and less focused, less and less directed toward the actual problem, and it's more sort of a pseudo-grandiose law enforcement organization that really has no power, no authority, and no budget.
And your district did have the NDIC under Murtha, and we lost that, I
Yes.
believe, 5 years ago. For
Yeah,
those of you who don't
we lost
remember,
that.
the NDIC was the regional National Drug Intelligence Center. It employed 100 people. They coordinated drug efforts, drug dealing, trafficking, investigation for the entire East Coast.
Correct.
Now granted, it was pork barrel.
Yeah.
Remember, Murtha was in for 38 years, and he was all about the pork. And in many ways, I personally think that's what destroyed my town. When you have one person controlling all the jobs, bringing all the pork in, we've seen now that Murtha's gone, the legacy, all the jobs are, economy was something people have asked me, say, ask Erin, how are you going to bring, I know you're one person, you can't bring in all the jobs. But right now, it seems like we have an overabundance of just government jobs.
Well, the biggest problem we have is this drug problem. I can't go around looking for strategic partnerships to do businesses and look at venture capital or anything like that when you have a massive drug problem. Nobody is going to invest.
And it is massive.
Exactly.
And nobody wants to say, the governor will say we need more funding for education. Where's the fund? And you don't want to throw everybody in jail.
Sure.
So what do you do?
Yeah, we have to get this drug problem done. We need a countywide task force done. We need everybody on board.
Where do you get the money for that? Because remember, it's always about the budget shuffle.
I'm going to hire a full-time grant writer in my office, and we're going to go after soft money through the congressional office.
Okay, so how much do you think you could actually?
I don't know. We have to look at what grants are available, how much funding, and we're just going to keep. I've written grants before. That's something I've done. And instead of trying to go through this ridiculous taxpayer-funded process that we have in Washington, just bypass that. Go after a huge soft money grab and start getting the district what it needs.
So what do you say to your critics? Like I know where I live in Johnstown, they protest drug centers. We actually had one proposed downtown where I live, and people were protesting.
The not in my backyard kind of thing.
And they want it everywhere, but like they want it in Pittsburgh. They want it somewhere else. How do you? I mean, you're going to have critics once you get elected.
Yeah.
You're going to be everyone's favorite, punching bag. What do you say to your critics who say, "Well, we want all this, but not here"?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they were putting it and what their objections were to in this particular case, so I would have to know all of that, and that would make it a lot easier. But, I mean, there's a lot you can do to make these programs more viable. There's things you can do for security to make people more comfortable. But I agree with you, it's always an issue. The not in my backyard mentality is the main reason that they put these programs in very bad areas. So you have addicts going from one bad area to another bad area, and it's not really helping.
So then how do we fix, I know it's a horrible question, the economy.
Yeah.
Remember, your district, I believe I read in my local paper, where I live in Cambria County, I think it's 70% of us are on food stamps.
Yeah,
There's like
problem.
60-some% are on cash assistance. I am not, thank God I have a job and I pay my bills, but for all those who don't have medical coverage, who don't have a paycheck, what do you say to them?
I want the minimum wage up to $10.10 an hour. I think that's absolutely essential. The bipartisan budget office has said that that'll automatically lift 1 million people out of poverty and off the welfare rolls. And I think that's something we're supporting. It helps raise inflation and raise wages, and hopefully that'll pull some people out of poverty. That's important. I want to really start addressing trade policy. I'm against the TPP. I'm against omnibus trade bills, and I want to stop stealing.
Why are you against them?
Well, because trade is a relationship. So right now we have the TPP there hanging out, but we're already creating.
Explain to our viewers who don't know what the TPP is.
Sure, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
People in Pittsburgh, what does that stand for?
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is an omnibus trade bill that the Obama administration has done with a number of other companies. It's massive. And the only thing I support in it are some of the agriculture stipulations that are actually good for farmers. But the actual trade parts are pretty bad. The regulations that they're looking at for workplace safety, equality, they're abysmal. They're stuff we were fighting for in the 1800s. It's kind of a joke from that perspective. And what I want is, instead of doing this big bill that people are going to bypass anyway, we're already doing side letters that are rule of origin for how we determine what makes an American-made car with Japan. Well, if you're going to do individual trade agreements, then just do individual trade agreements. Our trade with Japan, those issues look very different than our trade with China or
And
our
they
trade.
are very different.
Very
That's
different.
the problem.
So this notion that you're going to crunch all that into this big omnibus trade bill that doesn't even have any sort of dispute resolution process, it's absurd. So I think we need to go back to trade policies, embargoes on foreign steel, no steel dumping, that has to end. And then we have to start doing a lot more advancement on energy diversification, because we can take a lot of the mills just in this district alone. So I've seen 5 plants close since I've been running. We've seen the closure of the Gamesa plant, which is a direct result of a vote by Mr. Rothfuss when he cut their tax subsidies. We can use these steel plants to start renovating and using for production of windmills and solar, and there's a lot of other options that we can look at, and that still doesn't undercut the existing resources that we have for
We're a
fuel.
coal mining district.
We are a coal mining
You
district.
say you don't like coal or steel, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, and I think with coal, I do have a problem with how we've regulated coal. What we've done is, the regulations that are put in place absolutely mandate clean capture technology, but that is unbelievably expensive and it hasn't been advanced far enough. So we had a choice. If we were going to mandate that, then we needed to put government subsidies into making it happen.
Okay.
So I do disagree with how the Obama administration has done coal regulations. I think there's a way to hybridize those plants, to start slowly innovating them and updating them using a hybridized technology that's partially coal, partially natural gas. There's a lot of options. This way of just saying, okay, we're going to just nix this and move here, and not financially incentivize organizations to move forward on their own by reducing particle emissions and reducing CO2 emissions, is the wrong way to do it. We should be focusing on process improvement and getting better and innovation, and we should be rewarding that through our tax structure
So more
and our regulatory
technology
structure.
and less policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you brought up Obama. I will talk about him later, but my real question is, let's say you get elected, and I hope you do. How are you going to deal with all the factions in Washington? Because remember, you're one woman, you're going to have a team, you're going to hire people. You have the Republicans, you have the Democrats.
Yeah.
God forbid Trump wins. What do you do?
Well, I
Because
don't.
remember, this is a big what if. when
I
this
have no
happens.
idea what that man is going to do
What are you
if
gonna
he were
do?
to become president.
Someone's
But
gonna say, what if your constituents say, well, Erin, you're going to Washington,
Yeah.
and we have this. And for those of you who are asking my personal opinion, I kind of like Trump, but I like Hillary more. I think Hillary is the lesser of two evils, and I think that's the problem with America. We have two candidates where we're not saying who's the best person, we're saying the lesser of two evils. And the other candidates who surround them encompass both better aspects of each candidate, and none of them have the publicity or the name recognition.
Sure.
So what do you do when you get elected?
I focus on inarguable goals. So with healthcare, we have sort of this ideological
Are you in
divide.
favor of Obamacare or are you against it? What's the
I am in favor, so I support it because we've tried to do healthcare reform in this country
Okay.
for 70 years, and
Yes.
it's needed done. Every president for 70 years, other than with the exception of 2, has tried healthcare reform. We finally got it. It wasn't the best way we could have done it, but we finally got something, and
So
I'm
would you
not going to
propose-
repeal that.
So would you propose changing it or tweaking it? Or would you
Tweaking
want
it, yeah, just basic process improvement. One thing that we do know is it is moving care toward rewarding quality of care versus quantity. Up to this point, if a hospital gave bad care and you got readmitted, they kept billing for the new services, so they were actually financially incentivized to do bad care. Not that they were intentionally doing that, but there was nothing in place to say, hey, let's make it better. We need to move toward outcomes. The average person uses more pieces of data to pick a restaurant than they do to
And
pick a
their
healthcare provider.
Yes, and most people only go when they're actually sick.
Uh-huh.
There's all sorts
No
of problems
preventative.
with.
Yeah.
We don't care. And
Exactly.
Most people are so broke they can't even afford the $10 for the copay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's another issue.
And we need universal coverage. You have to have everybody covered. We are a country that has decided, and we decided a long time ago, that we were not going to let our sick and injured die in the streets. We've decided we're going to treat them. So you need a payer system. As long as
Agreed.
you're not paying for everybody's care, then you are gonna redistribute the cost of that care onto the people that have it. And when people get angry that their premiums went up under the Affordable Care Act, I always say, well, what did you think was gonna happen when
Free and no cost.
70 years you've been administering care through a dysfunctional system that encourages people to go to the ER instead of the doctor's office, and then you're redistributing that cost onto the people that have care. Well, if we're gonna start paying for that up front instead of on the back end, which is way more expensive, then yes, your copay is gonna go up. If you don't like that, then start moving toward a universal care system. And then you won't have this problem. But we have to make a choice, and we have to have a real conversation. I'm really tired of people saying, well, it's either this way or that way, and we want to solve this problem, and we want costs to stop going up, but let's blame the health insurance providers, or let's blame the drug companies. This is all of us. We have all participated in this problem, and none of us have really done much to solve it. So we all have to share in the blame on that one.
So for people who would next ask you about education costs, I'm sure you're following all the ongoing, I read them all, I have student loans, I'm sure many people do. Do we fix it? How do we fix it?
Education?
Education's a big...
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Student loans, how we even fund our schooling, how we pay our teachers, how we pay our professors. What do you think of this? It's a little broad, I'm giving you the wide range.
No, it's cool. The performance measures that we do in schools are completely ridiculous at this point.
The testing.
So yeah, what we do is we do aggregate testing, and as somebody who comes from a therapy background, you don't measure how all of your patients are doing at once. You look at each individual case and say,
Right.
Is this person improving? So when we're measuring how kids are doing, are they learning, are they becoming well-adjusted, thoughtful, independent, compassionate, empathetic human beings, which is what I really want them to be, are we measuring that on an individual basis? Did this one child's test scores increase by 2% or 3%? And then if you are noticing a deficit, why are we defunding that? I don't understand that.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more things going on in a child's life that is underperforming or not learning than just their school
But the
or their
critics
teacher.
would say it's not about the money, it's about the quality. I know where I live, we're paying our superintendent $1 million a contract to be superintendent.
Yeah, why?
Teachers are making 6 digits out, and they're all one family.
Okay.
That's our big drama in Johnson. One family controls all the school jobs.
Okay, but you have a school board that's elected.
They're all one family.
Okay, so that's a problem.
Yes.
So then you need to run people for those seats.
And they get $70 million a year. And I'm sure there's other districts throughout Pennsylvania that have the same educational crisis. You have all this money going to education, the scores are still dropping. When the scores are good, they herald them. Look at these great scores.
Yeah.
When the scores are bad, it's throw more money at the problem.
But I think overall it goes back to the fact that you have school boards that make those decisions, and some of the most corrupt organizations are school boards.
Now, who holds them accountable? Most taxpayers.
Well, it's got to be the voter, you know?
They're too struggling trying to make money and make ends meet.
That they've got to engage. If you don't
I
like
agree.
what's going on in your school system, you have a democracy that makes those decisions, you hold those people accountable, and if you don't like what they're doing, vote them out.
One of the things I've heard you say that I'd love to talk about the mother figure of America.
This
Putting her on the
country
spot.
needs a mom.
A mom.
Yeah.
You originally were talking about Hillary Clinton, but I also think you were talking about yourself.
No, I was talking about me, I was talking about Katie, I was talking about Hillary.
Katie McGinty is also running for Senate. That's another, you don't know who she is, look her up. She ran for governor last, was 2 years ago. She had a decent showing. She could win the seat. She's strong, she's feisty. Just like you. I think that's something you, Hillary and Katie, for Pennsylvania, all have that spunk.